The trial captivating a nation.
Jennifer McCabe spent longer than anticipated on the stand, sharing what she says Karen Read said as first responders were trying to save John O'Keefe.
Your client said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
She repeated, I hit him, I hit him.
She's testifying to whether or not it was a direct statement, I hit him, versus a question, did I hit him?
It's always inconsistent.
Don't take anyone's word for it.
And no more nonsense. Let's just try this case.
NBC 10 News has the latest on the retrial of Karen Read.
Hi, everybody. This is our daily recap of the court action in the Karen Read retrial. On the stand today was Dr. Irene Scordi-Bello. She is the medical examiner who's testifying in this case. NBC 10's Gabrielle Caracciolo is our reporter for the day, covering this for us. She talks about a head injury, Gabrielle. Did she draw a conclusion that was cause of death? Did you happen to hear that, or she just described the head injury?
Yeah, she says the blunt force injury to the head and hypothermia are what she listed as the cause of death in her autopsy report. It was the manner of death that she was not able to come to a clear conclusion on what the manner was. But the cause of death, she said, it was blunt force injury to the head and hypothermia.
Okay, so the blunt force could come from a car hitting him, or someone hitting him with a club, or hitting them with their hand, I suppose. So that's an open question, but it was blunt force trauma to the head, cause of death, and hypothermia. Go ahead and roll the soundbite. We'll listen to it.
You evaluate it all in your autopsy, whether Mr. O'Keefe had any injuries consistent with a motor vehicle accident. Objection.
I'll allow that.
Yes, I did examine his lower extremities. That is protocol in any case of suspected impact with a motor vehicle. So I did examine his legs, and I did not see any evidence of an impact site.
And could you elaborate to the jury what you mean by no evidence of an impact site? Objection.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
What do you mean in your answer, no evidence of impact injuries?
I'll allow that.
What I look for is some sort of bruise, either on the outside of the leg or bleeding on the inside after the skin is reflected in the soft tissues, or any fracture of the bones of the legs. I did not observe those things.
That was going to be my question. You did not observe any of those things, correct?
Correct.
Take that as a win for the defense. If the state is trying to say he was hit by a car, she doesn't see any evidence that of an impact injury severe enough for a car. Let's go ahead and roll the other bite, which talks specifically about the head injuries. Go ahead.
Death was determined to be blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia.
You mentioned two different things, blunt impact and hypothermia. Was
Correct.
there a primary cause of death in your opinion?
The blunt impact injuries of head.
Hypothermia, was that sufficient to be a primary cause of death in your opinion?
In the absence of head trauma, hypothermia is a cause of death, but I'm not able to make that determination in this case because we do have the blunt impact injuries of head.
Okay, I guess we could say that could play for the state's case. Someone gets hit by a car, they get hit by the car in the head. All right, Gabrielle, attorney Robert Alessi, who was for Karen Read, was asking about injuries to his arm and this dog bite speculation. Set that up for us a little bit, and then we'll get to that soundbite. Go ahead about the Chloe the dog.
Yeah, this is one of the defense's alternative theories about the injuries on John O'Keefe's body, how they could have gotten there. There are these scratches on his arm. The medical examiner says she noted what she called superficial abrasions, that they seem to be in some consistent type of pattern, and that she didn't measure how deep these abrasions were. She thought they were superficial, but she doesn't come to any clear conclusion on how they got there. At one point, Alessi did ask if they could be consistent with the dog bite. There was an objection to that question, which was sustained, so we never got an answer from her on that.
These scratches, well, they look more like scratches in the arm, the picture, the autopsy picture, than a rip of the skin. I mean, you could see this here. I mean, at least look, that's what I'm seeing. I don't know if the jury sees the same thing or whether they're seeing something else. Also testifying was Maureen Hartnett from the state crime lab, and there was cross-examination going back and forth. Did that have to do with collection of evidence and the chain of custody of that evidence?
Yeah, so she spoke to the chain of custody of different pieces of evidence, some that were in her chain of custody from the beginning, some that weren't. So there were certain pieces that she said, she doesn't know where it went or what happened to it until it became something that was in her custody. And she was mostly on the stand yesterday. So today really was just wrapping up some of those questions about how a piece of hair on the taillight would have stayed there, even though it was driven in that snowstorm after John O'Keefe's death, and things like that, just kind of going over the chain of custody, in which on several of these, it's not clear exactly where the evidence was. We know that either she had it or the Norfolk County police had it, but beyond that, there's not a lot of details beyond who was the person in control of it.
Right. And there was an ancillary ruling regarding this buffer zone. They're keeping the media a certain distance away. There was some objection to that. What was the outcome of that ruling today? Apart from the case, there was a ruling on the buffer zone. What was it?
Yeah, so this actually had a lot to do with the protesters that we've been seeing outside of court. And so a federal court of appeals, First Circuit, had ruled that there had to be an amendment to the buffer zone. It's a larger buffer zone this trial than it was last trial. So the judge had to issue a new amended ruling. And this ruling basically says people are allowed to be on the public sidewalks, the public streets, as long as they're staying quiet, not interfering with justice going on. You note even today in the courthouse, several times you could hear as sirens were passing by. You hear them very loudly. They pause court at several times when there are sirens, an ambulance or something driving by, because you can't hear. And she's wanted to prevent the jury from hearing from all of the protesters outside on both sides, but mostly the Free Karen Read protesters. So this is a win for them. They will be allowed to be much closer to the courthouse.
NBC 10's Gabrielle Caracciolo covered the court for us today. We'll look for your reporting on our later newscast. In the meantime, I'm Gene Valicenti. That concludes our daily debrief. You can watch this on the WJAR YouTube channel, where you can also watch Gavel to Gavel coverage, and I'll have it on my radio and on NBC 10 News at 7. Have a good rest of your day.
The trial captivating a nation.
The defense had questions about initial evidence collected in red Solo cups.
Solo cups and stuff put in bags.
You don't know where the DNA that's on those things is coming from.
What can we expect from Cross?
A lot.
The cross-examination has been described as aggressive.
I think they have to be very strong with the cross here, because they're not allowed to bring in their own expert to talk about police procedures and policies.
NBC 10 News has the latest on the retrial of Karen Read.